Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, Democrats. Sounds good in the room. Didn't hear you on Zoom. Everybody on there, unmute your microphones, and everybody in the room end your conversations. Let's take a seat. Try it again. Good evening, Democrats.
Good evening,
Democrats.
Hello, good
Right,
evening.
at the Santa Monica
Evening,
Democratic
Democrats.
Club, we have our biannual Santa Monica City Council candidates debate. We have 6 candidates seeking our endorsement, and none of the 6 candidates have been found guilty on 34 counts of felony charges. So for those who didn't see it, last week we had our debate for the rent control board, the school board, and the college board. A couple of the candidates are here tonight. They all did a really great job. I recommend you check that one out on YouTube already. And I also wanted to make sure everybody knows that on June 26th, we're going to have our endorsement meeting. It will be entirely virtual on Zoom. So everybody will be able to participate. It will go on Zoom. We have some surprise guests who will be popping in to say hello while everyone's voting. But the main item on the agenda for that meeting will be voting on our endorsements. We have a really big city council election, of course. So we want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to vote. So please be there. We'll have the RSVP link after that pretty soon. Then the next night after that, it's going to be a busy week because the next night after our endorsement meeting, there's going to be another debate, but it's not for Santa Monica. It's Joe Biden versus Donald Trump are going to be debating. And I think only one other person in this room knows this yet. It hasn't been officially announced, but our partners at the West Side Democratic headquarters will be hosting a live debate watch party here in Santa Monica. It's going to be right on the 3rd Street Promenade, Barney's Beanery. So obviously more information will come out, the exact time and everything, but come to Barney's Beanery for the debate. It's from the West Side Democratic headquarters. Coming a little bit later this year, during the campaign season, will be our ballot measure endorsement meeting. And we're going to be considering the pros and cons of all the statewide and local ballot measures, and we'll be voting the same night. Our legislative VP, Isabel Story, is already working on that along with Lynn Cervini from our board, and we're looking forward to having a great meeting for that. All that information TBD. Be sure you're on our email list so that you get all the latest information about that. We're going to have lots of get out the vote opportunities during the rest of the year for both Santa Monica and also our regional House elections. We're going to flip the House this November. We're going to return the gavel to Democratic control. And we're going to elect Hakeem Jeffries, the first Black Speaker of the House. And of course, in doing that work, we're going to help to get out the vote for Joe Biden and make sure he gets reelected for a 2nd term. And of course, we're going to elect our Senate candidate, Adam Schiff, to the U.S. Senate. So all of that is coming up, but we've got a lot to get to tonight. There's so much to talk about here in Santa Monica, and we have 6 candidates ready to do exactly that. So let's get the debate started. I'm going to introduce the candidates for you right now. First up, Santa Monica College trustee, Barry Snell.
Other ships were firing over us all day. And we were never away from
Santa Monica Rent Control Board Chair, Ericka Lesley.
Texas and Arkansas that sounded as though they were throwing.
Santa Monica Planning Commission Chair, Ellis Raskin.
As we moved on in, they were no part of our world.
Former Santa Monica Audit Subcommittee member, Natalya Zernitskaya. Santa Monica Pier Corporation Board Member Dan Hall. And Community Builder Marcus Owens. Ladies and gentlemen, your Democratic candidates for Santa Monica City Council. We have several questions, of course, to get to. The order that each candidate will answer will be at random using the randomizer on the internet. Candidates are also aware that we have a special rule for this debate that if they hear something stated by another candidate that they disagree with, that they can raise their hand and request an additional 30 seconds to respond to whatever they feel they need to respond. That would be at the moderator's discretion, of course. And I also want to give a shout out to Sam Coslino, our timekeeper this evening. So we're going to have 60-second responses for each question. Of course, in case if anyone wants to add an additional 30 seconds, but it's only if you hear something that you want to respond to that someone else on the stage is. Okay. So now we're going to go directly into our opening statements. This is going to be completely at random. I'm doing it right now. And the first up is Dan Hall.
Right. Can everyone hear me? This is working. All right. Thank you, John. Thank you to the executive committee who's hosting tonight, and thank you to my colleagues for joining me. My name is Dan Hall. My pronouns are he, him. For those who are hard of sight or watching online or just listening, I am a tall, slender white man wearing a gray jacket and light blue shirt. I am a renter. I am an Iraq War veteran and a Santa Monica Pier Board member. I'm running to restore our progressive Santa Monica values to City Council because they've been missing for the past 4 years. As your former Vice President of Political Action, Vice Chair of Diversity, Inclusion, and Legislative Committee member, this club knows my commitment to affordable housing, to renters, to workers, to traditionally underrepresented and marginalized communities, and to ethics in government. I'm running on a platform of clean and safe streets and neighborhoods, affordability and inclusivity, and good government that promotes transparency, accountability, ethics, and efficiency with your tax dollars. I'm excited to be on my home club tonight and looking forward to our debate. Thanks, everyone.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marcus Owens. I am running for Santa Monica City Council to increase engagement, increase safety, and to build a future for Santa Monica that is brighter, more equitable, sustainable, and overall just equitable for our community. I believe that by working with others side by side with county organizations and community organizations, that we could really improve areas, particularly when it comes to the homelessness within Santa Monica, and also when it comes to education and safety. So that's what I intend to do. Just a little bit about myself. Fine? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Ellis.
Thank you, John. Thank you to the Santa Monica Democratic Club for hosting tonight, and thank you to all of you in the room and online for coming out here tonight. So my name is Ellis Raskin. I'm the chair of the Santa Monica Planning Commission. I'm an elected member of the Angeles chapter of the Sierra Club's executive committee. I'm an environmental attorney, and I'm running because we need, as Dan said, to restore progressive values in Santa Monica. I first got involved in politics here in Santa Monica, fighting evictions in the Pico neighborhood where I live as a renter. When I first started that work in 2015, evictions were happening left and right. Thankfully, through our work, we helped keep people in their homes, including one building just down the street here at 21st and Virginia. Those folks are still there. But the eviction crisis continues. We're at a point now in our city's history where folks who graduate from high school here don't have a meaningful opportunity to live in the city where they grew up. That's not right. We need to fix that. We're also living in a time in history, well, I'll tell you more later. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Natalya Zernitskaya, and I'm running for Santa Monica City Council. I've been part of the Santa Monica community for a little over a decade, and this entire time I have been committed to advocating for a more positive future for Santa Monica and to protecting our progressive values. My family and I were able to come to this country because we were Jewish refugees from the former Soviet Union. And we arrived with only a few $100s, and we're incredibly lucky that we landed in a place like San Francisco, where people had the foresight to develop vital safety nets like rent control. I'm also a Pico neighborhood renter in a rent-controlled unit. I know what it's like to have to rely on safety nets provided by the government and community-serving nonprofits, and I know what it's like to fear losing them. And I'm committed to protecting them here in Santa Monica. Here, I've previously served as president of the League of Women Voters of Santa Monica for 4 years, and I previously, okay, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here. This room means a lot to me. I have been here many years advocating for our community, and this room itself, it's named after Thelma Terry. Thelma Terry was a person that was a great community member and a person that faced racism. And as my predecessor has carved the way for me to be here tonight, I stand on her shoulders and here to represent the voices of the people that are unheard and the people that need to hear their voices. I'm also here for our youth that have lost faith in this democratic process and figure that all this is rigged and it's just a game. I'm here for you and I want to be your voice. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Barry Snell, and I've been a 20-year resident of Santa Monica. My wife and I have raised 5 children in Santa Monica, 4 of which have gone through Santa Monica school systems. Currently, I'm a trustee for Santa Monica College and a state trustee for the state of community colleges. I'm a CPA by day with a small business, and I care about this community. I was on the school board for 4 years, and I have been on the downtown Santa Monica board for 12 years. I'm running for city council to address issues of our city, to promote transparency in our government and to be more inclusive and equitable in the city. My primary objectives are centered around the needs for the community, which ensure safety, affordable housing, and investing in our infrastructure. I'm looking forward to tonight's discussion and I'm looking to hear from you as we go through this race through November. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So let's start tonight with the candidates who aren't here this evening. All of the incumbent candidates were invited to participate, as well as other announced and rumored candidates. Only the 6 candidates on this stage have elected to participate. First question out of 2 on this topic. Why do you think those candidates declined to seek the Santa Monica Democratic Club endorsement? Start with Natalya.
Very unexpected question. I never want to assume I know anybody's intentions or thought process behind wanting to do something or not wanting to do something. I know that the Santa Monica Dem Club's endorsement process is rigorous. The questionnaire is quite intense. The process is not for the faint of heart. So maybe they just didn't feel like this was their place. but I feel like the Santa Monica Dem Club is my place, and I was grateful to be endorsed by the club in 2022, and I hope to earn your support once again.
With the incumbents, probably the long, city council meetings, they're probably still sleeping, but anyway. I honestly don't know why they wouldn't want to do it. I think it's, vitally important that we're running through an election that's very important and that the community needs to hear from all of us. To run for any kind of office, I think you need to be vetted, whether you're an incumbent or someone that is, trying to, gain that seat. It's a nervous, and as Natalya said, a very time-consuming event. But if you're really considering wanting to do what's best for the community, I think this is an area that you need to be able to have that kind of discussion. So hopefully, as we go along, they'll make a different decision.
Thanks. Let's go to Dan.
So I'm biased because I do consider this my home club. I view the Dem Club as the primary in the city for local office for Democrats. And I think that the incumbents are nervous to face challengers because they don't have much to run on. They have significant amount of broken promises. You know, I have a whole page here. Let's rattle them off. They promised to limit building heights to 4 stories, yet they gambled with the state and lost, and the builder's remedy attacked our city. We now have skyscrapers going in on Broadway and in the Pico neighborhood. They say they're tough on crime, but they voted to defund the city attorney's prosecutors. The mayor promised he'd cut homelessness by 50%, when in fact it's increased during the time the change slate has been in power. The mayor said he didn't want Chick-fil-A on the promenade, but then voted to allow fast food there. You know, I think they have a record that they don't want to stand on.
Short answer, I'm not sure. I believe that with anything in life, well, one, it's very important, particularly in this field, to gather information. So my first response is, how were they contacted? Were they contacted in person, over email, over phone? Because working in that field, you get a lot of emails a day. So it's quite possible that they missed the email. Not to say that's what happened or you didn't follow up, but I can't assume. I would just say that the city is doing the best they can to whatever capacity they have, but also consider who voted them in. Who's voting? Who's engaged in the voting process? I think it's very important to get the younger voters engaged. Everybody engaged in deciding and giving them information on who they are voting into office.
Yeah, thank you. You know, if you ask them directly, I think at least 2 of the incumbents will tell you that they haven't decided whether they're going to run or not. The reality of politics is that the political season starts very early. I know for many of us here up on this panel, we've been essentially running for well over a year now. We've been engaged with the community. We've been talking to folks. We've been raising a hell of a lot of money, excuse my French. And we're prepared to be advocates for our community. And if you're a serious politician, you've got to do that process early and be engaged with the key stakeholders in our community, like the Democratic Club. If you haven't made up your mind whether you're going to run yet or not, I think that's a serious indictment as to whether you're serious about being a leader in our community.
I will be another one that will not speculate. But from what experience or words that I've heard from the incumbents is that they didn't feel comfortable in this space. Like my colleagues here have said, this is a rigorous process and they don't feel comfortable in this space. I'm not saying that this is an uncomfortable space to be in, but for them, I guess so, if you ask the hard questions. Thank you.
Okay, 4 years ago, Phil Brock, Oscar De La Torre, and Christine Para were elected to city council, and a few months later, Lana Negrete was appointed, giving the change slate a majority on council. If 4 candidates from this stage are elected to city council, we would vote out 3 incumbents for the first time since the change slate did the same 4 years ago. The change slate made the case then as to why Santa Monicans should vote out the incumbents. Now's your chance to do the same. Why should we vote out the incumbent council members? And why are you the best positioned candidate to succeed in that effort? And we'll start with Marcus.
Great question. I would just say, just given our the state of the city, you know, I live in the downtown Santa Monica area. I walk my dog almost every day. She has to stretch her legs, so I see firsthand what it's like in the city. And there's a lot going on. You know, just in regards to the construction alone, there's no temporary sidewalk. You're forced to go around. Who was a part of that process? Just in regards to our homelessness, there are no shelters in Santa Monica, at least not as many as there should be. Who's a part of that process? Our city council. There is so much opportunity to grow and improve, and I think it's very important to decide on who we're voting for. Thank you.
Well, earlier, Dan started listing a few things that I know he and I both disagree with, and I'll read a few more, and I've discussed all these with the incumbents as for some of the reasons why I think that other more progressive leaders are needed. For example, the decision to kill the investigation into leaks from confidential closed city council meetings, attempts to silence free speech from our city workers, the backlash against gender-inclusive restroom facilities, policy decisions to criminalize homelessness, including an early attempt to close beaches overnight. These are just some examples, including, for example, not being supportive of safe streets and bicycle facilities, including the 17th Street corridor. I mean, in a time when more kids are dying for traffic violence than gun violence in LA County, we need leaders who are going to be in the front line stepping up for what really matters in our community. Speaking for myself, because this is part of the question, have the policy, knowledge, and experience to take us there and take us to where we need to be. Thank you.
Yeah, +1 to everything you said, Ellis. I totally agree. You know, for me, affordability and inclusivity is my North Star in politics. And when it comes to the incumbents, I feel like they have taken positions and votes that have and made statements that have been against those two principles. For example, with rent control, when the rent control board proposed Measure RC to cap our rents at 3%, the incumbents fought to raise it to 4%, saying that 4% was better for landlords. This is a 68% renter city. We should be paying attention and looking out for our renters. When the mayor, in his interview for the Dem Club last time, said that he would support Unite Here when they were striking for better wages and benefits, he tried to silence them with a noise ordinance. I and four of the other candidates up here, maybe 5, were on the picket lines with the union. When it comes to inclusivity, 3 of the incumbents used dog whistles that you are more likely to hear on Fox News, and we were organizing for our transgender siblings so that they felt inclusive in our public restrooms. That's why I think they should be voted out and why we should be voted in.
My colleagues have touched on many things that I support. But one of the things that I think is really important, being a city council member or a public official on any dais, is a certain decor, a certain etiquette that I don't see from the individuals that we talk about in the change slate. 2, I believe conflict of interest is a very important thing, and we have a lawsuit that's going on in our city right now, where one of our city council members is sitting in closed session to discuss a law case against, that his wife has submitted, which anyone on this dais, I would hope, would understand, just the appearance of conflict would move me from that. I've always been one that even if I disagree with an issue with one of my colleagues, that I've had a certain decorum and be able to argue my point and learn from the points of others. And I just don't see that on this particular city council. And I think that's important. We're not going to always agree on everything, but I believe that to move the city forward, to be a true leader, you have to be able to look forward and be able to, at times, understand that you don't have all the answers. But I don't see that with this particular council. Thank you.
Okay, Ericka.
Okay, where do I start? This is a list. First off, being city officials or leaders, to have a focus on the people that voted them in first. The attack on rent control that my colleagues and I, Carolyn Terosis, Anastasia Foster, even some of those rent control board members that were there till 4 o'clock in the morning to make sure that this didn't take place. I myself have been to Washington, D.C., where they're still advocating for TORCA 2.0. It is not a council that puts the people's needs in the forefront beyond their own personal interests or their own personal just debates amongst one another. We're coming to a time that we're asking where are the adults in the room. Thank you.
So a lot of folks have already touched on a lot of what I was going to say. But I just wanted to add for a little bit of context on the lawsuit that Barry was speaking about, the CVRA lawsuit against the city where a council member has a conflict of interest. I've actually gone to city council to testify and kindly ask the council member to please do the right thing and recuse himself. And they have continued to respond by misstating the fact that there was in fact a settlement in the conflict of interest lawsuit, and a judge did not rule that he doesn't have a conflict of interest. It's a little bit too nuanced, I'm sorry. But other than that, I think the priorities are not where they should be. Just as an example, last week at Tuesday's council meeting at the mid-cycle budget discussion, our current council majority, thank you, I will expand on that later.
Okay, and just a word to the audience, we want to make sure that we keep everything going. So if we could withhold the applause until the end for the rest of the debate. Okay, we're going to go into a section on housing. We have 4 questions there. One thing most Santa Monicans agree on is that we have a housing affordability crisis. But of course, there's a lot of theories on who or what is to blame. In your opinion, what policy decisions at the state or local level are most to blame for this crisis? And as this council will be charged with overseeing the upcoming 7th RENA allocation cycle, what lessons would you take from the last few councils to approach that differently? We start with Natalya.
I think it is a variety of factors that has led to our current housing crisis. Just looking at the numbers, we have significantly underbuilt new homes for the past several decades. And as an example, because I like research too much, and I looked this up on the SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments website earlier today, in between 2012 and 2020, there were only 2 years where we issued more than 7 multifamily housing building permits per year. In 2012, we issued 626, and that was the last year that we had redevelopment funds. We don't have those anymore. So we've been relying on the market rather than any other sources of funding to create new housing and new affordable housing. We do have Measure GS, which is going to help, but not if we don't repay the Housing Trust Fund, the 36 million we borrowed. Thank you.
Very good response. Let's see, so my first thought, obviously, in regards to why we are in the current state that we are in is obviously funding, right? Funds were allocated outside of the fund that was designated to housing into other things. Besides the point, in order to fix that, we need funding. Two, we need location. Particularly there's Santa Monica Airport, great location. There's also locations that are just owned by the city, but nothing's being built there. There's also vacant locations all throughout Santa Monica. So, and to increase funding, great way to do that would be to have a vacancy tax. I've had so many places next to my apartment just sitting there. Next thing is cost. Need to find a way, regional or statewide, to reduce the cost of developing these places so that we can build more. Thank you.
Thanks. So the first part of the question, what's to blame? I think first and foremost, we have added so many restrictions onto building housing that it's become unaffordable to build new homes. Things like requiring parking spots, underground garages add hundreds of thousands of dollars to every unit that gets built. Wages have not kept up with the cost of living in Santa Monica and in California at large. And communities across the state, and I would like to say unlike ours, have been unwilling to invest public funds in deed-restricted affordable housing. And I think that's one thing that Santa Monica has done amazingly well in the past, and we should build on that legacy. Lessons that I think we learned or at least the candidates up here have learned through the last housing element cycle, is that we can't be afraid to allow for more housing. When HCD, when the state decided that we were out of compliance because of NIMBY policies the incumbents had in place, it was because we weren't allowing more housing. And I'll continue later.
Santa Monica is faced with some significant challenges for housing. To better tackle it, I think I would propose a couple of things. One, I would like to streamline development process to expedite new home building. I would like to contribute more to the affordable goals of housing and with our housing trust fund. And then I really would like to look at how we can keep individuals in our home. We need to establish policies to make sure that those that are looking at evictions will really be able to stay in their home comfortably. I think housing is our primary focus in our city, and the more affordable, more transient, inclusive housing that we can build is something that I would be very focused on. I've also talked about some funding as to how we could do it. I'm looking at how other cities are doing with public banks, which are nonprofit banks that the city can control exactly where the funding would come from. But these are just some aspects that I think about.
I'm going to start out with the lessons that we've learned to move forward. Number one, the way that we are building housing, we're only allowing for 15%. We need to move that up to at least 30. There's not enough affordable housing out here, even though we are designated as a pro-housing city. However, we need to spend less time fighting the state about how many housing units we need to spend instead of then in researching about how we're going to fund for these housings. There are federal dollars available for that, and we should take advantage of it. We need people that are designated to looking into those dollars to make sure that we attain those dollars. We also need to streamline our permits. This is something we've talked about several times on downtown Santa Monica. The streamlining of permits will help us build our affordable housing faster in a more reasonable way so that they don't have to wait. While they're waiting, they're spending more money and less money for them to be able to afford to build affordable housing. Thank you.
Well, let's go and.
Well, I might make the point you're going to make, Dan. But before I say that, I want to acknowledge that the history of housing policy in Santa Monica is based on well over a century of exclusionary and racist zoning policies. Our freeway and civic center exist because folks were kicked out of their home, generational wealth was stolen. Obviously, we're not going to get out of our problem unless we recognize that history and meaningfully build the types of affordable housing that will get us there. Ericka touched on the fact that we should get to 30% inclusionary housing. Unfortunately, state law doesn't allow that. The presumption under state law is that that inclusionary level is capped at 15%, and unless you have an economic analysis that shows you can go higher, the law limits it at 15%. So what does that mean for us? It means we need to leverage every single tool in our tool belts to make sure that we're leveraging public land and public financing to build as much of those affordable units as we can. In my questionnaire responses, I showed the numbers for our recycled production. We're getting far more market rate units than were required of us, and not nearly enough affordable units.
Thanks, and Ericka, did you want to respond?
So, as our city is very well versed in lobbying the state, we have to lobby for that 30%, just like we do for everything else, because we need it. There's too many people on our streets, and we're in desperate times right now. Thank you.
Ellis made my point.
Okay, touching off from what Ericka just said. While various housing strategies are pursued, we still have hundreds of unhoused people living and sleeping in Santa Monica every night. Mayor Phil Brock campaigned 4 years ago on reducing homelessness by 50% by the end of his first year in office, while in fact that number has increased during his term. What more can we do to help and support our unhoused residents while also working to decrease this unhoused population other than the strategies we just discussed about increasing more housing? And first up will be happening live. Ericka.
First of all, we need to restructure our intake system. There is so many different levels to homelessness. It's not just people sleeping on the streets. There are people that are couch surfing. I was in this very room when I discovered that a professor at SMC was unhoused. Due to her credit that she could not find, she was couch surfing. So there is no one way to streamline, there's no one way to do this. It has to be a multi-pronged approach. We can't just sit up and think, oh, well, we'll just bring people in and they'll just greet the people on the street. That's not how it is. There are people living in hotel rooms. We have people all over the place, but you don't see them because they're invisible homeless. These are things that need to be addressed. And I don't think that any of our fellow candidates understand that, because I have lived and experienced, and I know where the cracks are. So that's the reason why I stated what I stated before. Thank you.
I think we should expand our housing vouchers, housing voucher program. I think we need to make stricter rules with respect to making sure that tenants stay in their homes. I think we need to expand our housing fund. And if we take a look at where our market rate housing is going at this point, we need to take a strong look at how we as a city can build some kind of policies that, one, keep our renters in their homes, and also make sure that those that are looking for homes can qualify in a reasonable manner to be able to stay in our homes. So there's many avenues which we can look at to help affordability. And this is what some of the policies on city council that we should really take a look at.
Okay, we'll come back to you, Ellis.
Yeah, Mary, I think that was a really important point about making sure people can stay in their homes. We've learned some important lessons from other cities across California and across our nation, which is really that there are so many folks who are living so close to the edge. Folks who oftentimes fall into homelessness because they're short $100 or $200 in their rent. Some of our community leaders, like I see folks in the community now, like Anastasia Foster and Carolyn Terosis, have been making some really, really good efforts locally to legislate change that will fix those small shortfalls. But things like emergency rental assistance, things like the pod program, things like expanding vouchers are ways that we can get there. In terms of increasing outreach and resources to folks who are already experiencing housing insecurity, we absolutely need to make sure that our local resources are stacked up to get there. And also shout out to Rent Control Board candidate King Reese, who's been on the front lines helping folks who are living in cars and people who are couch surfing get into housing programs. So we need to make sure, again, that we're using every tool in our toolbox to get there, but those are some ideas.
I'm gonna come back to you after after everyone goes first.
But I'm just saying, I have something to say in regards to the Barry's. And you said if we had anything.
Yeah, it's supposed to be at the end of it, but if you want to interject, we can go. Well, why don't we go to Ericka for 30 seconds, and then we'll continue.
Okay, I just wanted to comment on the vouchers. There are vouchers that have been provided to people, but finding a Section 8 place here in Santa Monica is like finding a needle in a haystack. By the time most people that are unhoused get those vouchers, their vouchers run out. The time you have a certain time period on that, you don't get to extend it. And if you do, you still haven't found anything. They're not listed, and there's a lot of scams out there that people are running into. So the voucher's nice. It sounds like a good idea, but it's not profitable.
And that's something in city council that we need to look at for policy to expand those that have vouchers already, to be able to reapply in some way. There's processes to do that. We need to find, though, if we give people vouchers, we need to be able to utilize those vouchers to find home for them. And then those kind of processes, I think our city council, in coordination with our rent control board, should be able to develop. And those are the procedures I would think about.
So our city has made programs for the landowners or property owners to be able to take Section 8. They have not taken the bait. They've given $5,000 incentives. They've done just about everything they can think of, and still our people are going unhoused and having to go back into a temporary housing situation, and that's on a time limit as well. You say through the rent control board, it's still not helpful. We have to come up with some more solutions.
Let's see. Very good responses, y'all. Wow, love it. Okay, so I believe that with blending careful planning, collaboration with a can-do attitude, from utilizing existing funding and resources to securing new ones and coordinating with stakeholders, implementing tangible improvements, evaluating our process, that we will be able to make Santa Monica and our neighboring communities an even better place to live, work, and play. I believe that it's important to make our communities a shining example of what's possible. And to do that, it's possible when we come together with optimism, creativity, and a shared vision for a better tomorrow. With that said, I believe that by working regionally with hand in hand with other organizations within Los Angeles County and the state, that we can find a way forward. Otherwise, we try to keep it in our backyard, it won't get done. So working together is the best way forward.
So I love that we're getting asked this question, because I actually spent 3 years studying homelessness, not by myself, but with a group of folks in order to update the League of Women Voters of Santa Monica's policy position on homelessness. And something really important that I learned is there are as many reasons for homelessness as there are people experiencing it. So we need to be able to tailor the solutions to the person. And as Ericka mentioned, there are a lot of people who are invisible in homelessness. We see the folks who are out on the street, but we don't see the folks who are couch surfing, who are sleeping in their cars, who are just trying to figure out how to keep a roof over their head for one more month. So it is we need to use everything in our toolbox or tool belt, as Ellis said, in order to address homelessness. We need to keep people who are currently unstably housed. We've got the Preserving Our Diversity program, but that only helps seniors who are low income. Thank you. We need to expand that.
Yeah, Marcus.
I just want to expand on that. So, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. So individuals experiencing homelessness, they present a multifaceted challenge affecting, individuals and community alike. There's no, it's a not so apparent issue that, it mainly evolves around mental health and rehabilitation for the most part. So in order to resolve that, there needs to be services made available to these individuals. These services can be provided in our community centers and in affordable housing units that are being built to have some form of transitional housing, but services provided for these individuals. So I think that that's very important.
So I don't disagree that mental health is part of addressing homelessness, but it's not the biggest part. Housing should be the first solution, but it's part of a larger solution. Not everybody who is experiencing homelessness also has mental health issues. And a lot of the times the homelessness comes first, and then folks develop mental health issues after that. So yes, we need to address them, but we need housing, and we need housing with wraparound services, which may include mental health, which may include help with food.
Yes, I agree, but I would also have to disagree. As important that housing is, you can build it, but they will not come. You can lead a horse to water, but they will not drink it. What I've experienced through my encounters with individuals experiencing homelessness is that even though if you have that opportunity made available, some will say, I will stay homeless. There is an underlying issue that needs to be resolved. That is the reason why our crisis is where it's at right now, and it's on a state level. Housing is an issue which should be fixed, but also services is a very important issue that needs to be resolved.
Yeah, again, mental health is part of it. It is not the main thing. And with homelessness, the issue is right there in the name. People don't have a home. And I agree with you that a lot of folks may be resistant to getting services or getting into a home. And I think that that's really easy to understand when you put yourself in their shoes and you try to put yourself in that headspace. Some random person's approaching you on the street saying, hey, I can get you a home. How the heck are you going to trust them?
Okay.
I mean, I can pass it on. I mean, okay. You guys go ahead.
Thank you. Homelessness is a housing problem, period. UCSF study from the Benioff Institute found that unaffordable rents are the leading cause of homelessness in California. In 2021, and I want to give credit to Natalya for finding this exact stat today. In 2021 in LA County, we housed 207 people per day. 227 people per day fell out of housing. And it's because we're not doing enough to protect our tenants. We're not doing enough to stabilize our long-term renters, our long-term families, and our workers. And particularly our families with kids. You know, I believe that we should be using our Measure GS funds to increase affordable housing development, to expand our POD program, the Preserving Our Diversity program. And I think we should stop borrowing from our housing trust fund like it's a piggy bank. I think Natalya called out that $36 million have been taken from our housing trust fund. That was a fund established by the voters in this community for what they wanted, housing. Housing and homelessness is more than just supply. It's about stabilizing our renters, and it's about subsidizing and investing in deed-restricted affordable housing to protect the most vulnerable amongst us.
Okay. moving on, in 2014, Santa Monica voters decided to close the Santa Monica Airport to make room for a grand park on the same space. The council we elect this November will take their formal vote in 2028 to make that a reality. A few months ago, the Democratic Club had a forum where many different ideas were proposed on how to best use this land, and the city is in the process of seeking input now. Do you believe that housing should be considered as a suitable use for the airport land? If so, would you propose affordable or market rate housing? And if not, what specifics would you like to see on this land? And we start with Natalya.
So, I advocated for and voted for Measure LC because that was actually my first Santa Monica election I could vote in as a Santa Monica resident. I do think that housing can be an appropriate use for some of that land. It is 227 acres. After all, it's quite a bit of land. But the type of housing that I would like to see there would be something like social housing, something that's more mixed income. It may be deed restricted affordable. It may not. It may be built by nonprofits. It may not. That is all up in the air at this point. I think that it shouldn't be I think that it should serve the needs of our community. So I really love the idea of having social housing in that area, having it kind of low scale, having it blend with the surrounding area when we make it this great park. And the other part of it is when we're, thank you.
Sure.
The airport land is an excellent opportunity for us to discuss about many uses. I support LC and support the Santa Monica Airport becoming a park. But we have an opportunity during this period of time to talk to the community as to some of their vision with respect to it. We know we have a crisis with housing now, so I would think that that would be some of the discussion. And I'd like to listen from the residents. We receive $20 million from the airport, which goes into our airport fund, which is not could be utilized for anything at this point in time because it's an airport. Should the airport go away, that $20 million would come into our general fund, which would be very helpful into our coffer. So to answer your question about housing, I would really want to listen to the community as to what their thoughts are be about it. I do support the park though.
Yeah.
I respect and support Measure LC, period. The land should be used for the development of parks, for public open spaces, for public recreation facilities, and the maintenance and replacement of existing cultural, arts, and education uses. I think we have plenty of opportunity to develop housing in spaces around the airport that are not covered by LC. I think there's plenty of opportunity for urban infill and for gently increasing the densities along our commercial boulevards, as opposed to losing this once in a lifetime generational opportunity to create a great park on the west side of LA. It's going to be expensive, and I know we are in a financial crisis right now, but we should be looking to public-private partnerships and regional solutions with LA County and the city of LA, because they're going to be using it just as much as Santa Monicans are. But bottom line, LC is what the voters wanted, and it's what I respect and support.
Marcus.
Yes, I think our park is amazing. You know, Tongva Park particularly, really amazing. The thing is, you know, to have a park when we have the highest amount of homelessness ever experienced, the crisis is too high, unfortunately, right now to only build a park right there. There needs to be affordable housing. So I would encourage for there to be some sort of transitional housing where there's services provided, you know, on a sub-permanently basis, just somewhere for someone to land off their feet. They can take the train, building train systems right by by the park so that they can get to and from work, to and from their home, and to have some sort of system in place to where you know, they could enjoy the park, yes, but also go somewhere to talk about, you know, drugs, talk about addiction and, you know, have some sort of therapy session. You know, I think it'd be very important for their community to build that. Thank you.
The vision for the airport. The vision for the airport should be a park, but it should be mixed use. We need to repurpose the buildings that are there already and put them into utilization. We need to build more housing, and that's a perfect place for it. It would be a beautiful place. You guys could just have the vision to see it. That's about it. I'm sorry, I can't stop laughing. Here.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what's been said tonight. I mean, don't get me wrong, we need more housing in Santa Monica, but not at the airport. I fully support the use of the airport land as a park and other public serving uses consistent with Measure LC. We have a lot of opportunities immediately around the park to have a great opportunity to redevelop, for example, the Boston property site just north of the airport, and other areas in the general surrounding area. And we've seen in a lot of other places where folks or cities have redeveloped properties like airports or other public service uses into a park. They've had tremendous success upzoning the land immediately around the park to make it really a center of community space. And as others have said tonight, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to have a space of this size of contiguous land where we can develop parks and other public serving uses.
Can I just, real quick? Yeah, okay.
Great response. I would just like to add, you know, yes, I think again, a great park is amazing. But when we look at the cost of rent throughout LA County, the only way to reduce that would be building more affordable housing. I have community members reaching out to me right now. Why, like, how would you help reduce the cost of rent? Everyone's talking about the high cost of rent. Everyone wants to talk about the high cost of low minimum wage. But how about let's just let's reduce the cost of living. The best way to do that is utilize every opportunity we have. So yes, thank you.
Ellis, do you want to respond?
Do you want to go personal?
Yeah, absolutely. We need more affordable housing, just not at the park.
So I just wanted to quickly clarify something about LC. It stated that the land be used for a great park until the voters decide what to do with it. So if we do want any housing there, potentially, it would have to be approved by the voters anyway. So we wouldn't just be able to unilaterally decide, okay, we're putting housing here. No, people would have to have buy-in. We would have to make a case to folks. Whoever wants housing there will have to make a case to the voters. Why and what kind?
Marcus, did you want to reply or?
Yeah, quite exactly. I have nothing more to say. You kind of answered anything I would have said. I mean, at the end of the day, it's up to the voters. That's why I say it's very important who you vote in, because at the end of the day, you have people that don't listen to the community. You have people that do listen to the community. So I think it's very important to have someone that's open, and that's who I intend to be. I'm very flexible when it comes to ensuring that the community's needs are met. So thank you for, yeah, very good.
So thank you for that clarification, Natalya. I know that is a kind of hidden part of Measure LC that some folks don't know about. Look, I'm a pilot. I understand what the aviation community wants for the airport. And as a housing advocate myself, I think housing advocates have to play the politics of this very carefully. The aviation interests and the business interests that are at the airport will partner with NIMBYs to block the development of a park if we start straying from Measure LC. So I think it's very important for housing advocates to play the politics of this very smartly. The community has asked for a park and we should respect that.
Oh, yeah.
Dan, you bring up a really great point about the potential blowback, we'll say, of folks trying to keep the airport open if they think we're trying to do anything with the park. I know that there are discussions throughout the community that I'm sure have been ongoing for a while, ever since we signed the consent decree. And I do think that if we wanted to potentially explore housing there, we shouldn't start doing anything until closer to 2028, because we should absolutely close it first.
One day we'll invest in a wireless microphone. The Costa-Hawkins Act prevents establishment of rent control, changes to rent control, expansion to rent control statewide. This fall, if the Justice for Renters Act ballot measure passes, Costa-Hawkins would be repealed. Do you think rent control functions well in Santa Monica in its present form, or would you seek to pursue changes to our local rent control law if Justice for Renters were to pass? And if so, what changes would you like to see implemented? We'll start with Barry.
I support the proposition for renters for all. Costa-Hawkins has affected us in so many ways that I really believe that we should look at, if this proposition passes, how we could, one, keep renters in their homes, two, establish increases in rents in a way that are feasible for those low-income renters and for those individuals that are really at the borderline of being able to be evicted. It gives us more control. Right now, the state dictates how rents will increase when someone leaves. It goes right up to market rate. I think it should be local control. I think we do a great job being a majority of renter community, and I think we should have the control as to how rent should increase, how landlords should handle their properties, and any kind of divisions that are set to keep renters in their properties. So I'm looking forward for this proposition to pass so that we can make our own decisions with respect to our housing lot and our renters.
Mark.
Yes, thank you. Just to echo what was just said, I think I believe this measure is very important. I believe protecting, renters' rights is very important. Within that measure, or within other measures within Santa Monica, or on a state or federal, local, regional level, that it'd be very important to build some sort of renters relief fund, or just when COVID happened, a lot of people got hit hard and they did not qualify. Were removed from their homes, did not qualify. Sorry, you got to be homeless first, then you'll qualify. In certain circumstances, I think it's very important to have some sort of relief fund, or some sort of, hey, you come here, we got you. You go somewhere when you need a job, you got California Resource Center. There needs to be some sort of center or some sort of program to where, we can, yes, have set standards for rent, but also have some sort of relief fund for our renters in Santa Monica. Thank you.
And you were going to respond to that.
Yeah.
Let's put 90 seconds on.
Oh gosh, the whole time?
Sure. Go ahead.
So, I think that's a great idea, Marcus, and we have it. It's called the Preserving Our Diversity Fund, and I want to give credit to Mike Soloff, our vice president, for coming up with that idea and running it through SMER and this STEM club and getting it passed in the city. If the Justice for Renter Act passes, which I do support, I think it will be critically important to look at how we do rent control in Santa Monica. I would like to see a return to vacancy control. Vacancy decontrol through the use of Costa-Hawkins has allowed some rent control units in Santa Monica to cost $6,000. Tell me how that is affordable. That's not affordable to anyone. But with a reestablishment of vacancy control, it's important that we make sure that that does not stymie new housing development. I was very supportive of Senator Wahhab's SB 466, where it would establish a rolling rent control program, so that the first 15, 20, 25 years, whatever that magic number is for the community, a developer could earn their fair return and make their profits so that more housing could be built. But that once it reached that number or that time, it would enter our rent control stock. The Ellis Act and misuse and use of the Ellis Act has decimated our rent control housing stock. And if the Justice for Renters Act passes, we have a great opportunity to implement policies that will allow us to add to our rent control stock while also allowing new housing in the community.
Go to Ellis next.
Yeah, plus one to that. I mean, first of all of you, please vote yes for the Justice for Renters Act this November. Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is that we need city council candidates who will respect the independence and knowledge of the rent control agency. We have people in city council right now who do not understand that our government, our city government, was set up to have an independent rent control agency that will function independently of city council control. So many of these questions are best directed to our elected officials on the rent control board. And whatever the city council does with respect to rent control, which admittedly is limited what the city council can do with rent control because it's controlled by the rent control agency, but it should be done in consultation with the elected experts on that body. Plus one exactly to reforming vacancy decontrol. And plus one to bringing more newer units online within rent control. What we heard a few weeks ago from the rent control board candidates about how to do that, they had some great ideas, and I hope that they will implement that.
Eric. Marcus.
Yes, so, can we talk to each other? No, it's just sure, okay. When you say there's experts on the rent control board, do you mean because they're voted in that they become experts, or?
Well, there are folks who have spent their life fighting for fair housing and fighting for tenants' rights. Folks with lived experiences, folks who are truly the embodiment of expertise in this area of law. And for the most part, folks get elected because they have that expertise.
Thank you for the clarification. Yes, so, yeah, so I would just say, again, back to my prior statement that I encourage rent relief, not only today, not tomorrow, but for the lifespan of Santa Monica, there needs to be rent relief. There can be so many different situations that come up, but we were unprepared and we needed to pass a measure. What I'm encouraging is that there needs to be some sort of fund that you do not touch, but we also have a fund set up with what was already made. But going forward, I would just highly encourage rent relief to be made available throughout the city for anything that comes up.
Please repeat the question. I got lost.
The question is regarding what changes you would see that could implement if Justice for Renters passed.
So, as a city council person, it's not in our purview to make any changes to rent control. It's almost like a trick question. So only thing that I would make changes to as a city council person is that of code enforcement. Those are the changes that I would make. To expand code enforcement, we need a divided code enforcement. We need to hire more code enforcement officers. Somebody needs to be over the building in the downtown area and work with the businesses, and another field needs to work with our residences so that people don't have to wait so long to get service and for people to come out and see about their issues in their homes.
So because I get to go last, all the like correct answers were already taken. But I'll just plus one to please vote for the Justice for Renters Act on your November 5th ballot, please. We do need Costa-Hawkins reform. We need to enact vacancy control. We need to enact rolling rent control, but we should absolutely do it in consultation and collaboration and in partnership with the Rent Control Board. They are the duly elected folks who oversee this incredible agency that we have. I live in a rent controlled unit, and even I've had some issues with displacement and with a property management company that maybe isn't the most forthcoming in making repairs. And I'll tell y'all the story when I have more than 60 seconds, but let's refer to the duly elected experts and get a charter amendment on the ballot after the Justice for Renters Act passes. Thank you.
Okay, yesterday, Mayor Brock said on social media, quote, "Public safety is first defined as the thin blue line, which I believe has to be a much thicker blue line." Do you agree with the mayor that the best way to achieve safety for our residents is by adding more police officers to the force? If so, how would you actually achieve this goal, given that there are already 16 vacant officer positions that the city's been unable to fill? And if not, what do you see as the best approach to public safety in our city? We start with Ericka.
So let's be perfectly clear. We are gonna add more units to our city. And yes, we're gonna have to add more police officers. It's just that simple. Who's under the purview of the police department? Code enforcement. We need code enforcement officers. So therefore, we need what? More police officers. They lie under that purview. So it only makes sense that we add to the police department. Now, how we police them is a whole nother situation, but we need those added officers, those needed bodies. Thank you.
Barry.
Every city needs a strong police department. The police department constantly is having police retire, constantly have police go out on sick leave or injury leave. So we're constantly having a battle of hiring. The hiring practices for police is very difficult in the climate it is today. So that part of it, I think our city will always have a difficulty with. But in addition to it, we need to make sure that our policemen are being utilized properly for things that are really necessary for the police department. And I believe that with looking at services for our homeless individuals and our unhoused individuals, providing those type of services will reduce the amount of time that police officers have to go out and do things that look at things that aren't crime related. So I support our police department strongly. I think that we have a huge police budget right now because of overtime, and so that's.
Yeah, respectfully, if you're of the opinion that we need to improve public safety by hiring more officers, then you probably think that you need to work harder and not smarter. Honestly, everybody deserves to feel safe in their home. That's fundamental. We need to build a community where folks feel safe walking to school, where folks feel safe going to work, where folks feel safe shopping anywhere in our city. But as folks have alluded to already, we already have 16 vacancies on our police force. As of 3 months ago, there were 50 police officers who are going to be retiring in the next 2 to 3 years. So yeah, we do have some staffing issues we have to address, but it's with respect to the folks who are already gone or are leaving from our police force. With respect to how we can improve safety in Santa Monica, we absolutely need to keep our eye focused on how we can build much more equitable and inclusive methods of public safety in our community. And as I alluded to earlier, more kids die on streets than from gun violence in LA County. We need to make sure that our streets are safe. We need to make sure that we're engaging in 21st century policing using technology that's available in a way that is consistent with privacy values, and the ACLU has a lot of good lessons to learn from that.
So I have some thoughts, but some of them are inside thoughts that I won't say out loud in response to the mayor's comment. We do have 16 vacant roles for uniformed police officers. We also added 4 more in the budget discussion last week as a priority over paving our sidewalks and alleys. I think that we need to take a more holistic look at what we define as public safety. And I totally agree with Ellis that everyone deserves to feel safe in this community, no matter who you are, no matter where you came from, no matter whether you live here, you work here, you're just coming to shop here, whatever. Everyone deserves to feel safe. But that feeling of safety is affected by a lot of different things. Are you walking on a clean and safe sidewalk where you're not gonna trip over a messed up curb? Are you living in a home that hopefully doesn't have mold, but maybe it does? I agree. Agree with adding code enforcement officer things.
Just let's be 10 seconds. Yeah, also one important clarification, code enforcement is under the planning department, not the police.
Eric,
I don't know if I should make the comment here or should I make it, as far as with Natalya. As we talk about the expansion of the police department, I have been here when we had the shooting at the college. I've been here when we've had bomb threats. I've been here when there were shooting threats at the college again. And then, of course, May 31st. When we don't have enough officers here in our city, they call for officers outside of the city. And then we have an issue because they police different. They police different than our police department. And then we hold our police department accountable for the outside police officers' conduct.
So I'm a veteran, and there is no one on that dais or on this table that understands better than I the sacrifice that our law enforcement and their families make to serve and protect our community. And I respect that so much. Ellis pointed out, and Natalya and others have pointed out, the gap of 16 headcount that are currently vacant in the upcoming retirements. To add an additional 4 headcount that we know we aren't going to fill in this fiscal year doesn't make sense to me, when we should be focusing on preventing the root causes of crime: unstable housing, lack of education, lack of economic opportunity. If we wanted to put that funding directly towards a public safety law enforcement budget, let's put it towards programs that have been proven effective here in Santa Monica, that our police want, that our police chief wants, like the drone program, or including Santa Monica in an expansion of AB 645 for speed cameras for street safety. We should be fully funding and expanding the real-time crime operations center that would make our police so much more effective. Instead, we're funding headcount that we won't fill this year. That makes no sense to me.
Very good answers, y'all. So when it comes to the police department, I think we have a beautiful police department. Funding wise, I think they're very well funded, could not be funded more. Again, just kind of like what our gentleman over here stated, why work harder, we work smarter. I believe that by utilizing certain funds from roles that aren't being filled to allocate them to our block by block program and expanding their outreach, that we can encourage community safety and engagements far more better than we can by hiring more officers. It's not the matter of presence, because when George Floyd events happened, it wasn't about presence, it was about education. So I think it's really important that our officers are trained and that there's community involvement in regards to the spending and where that money goes. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, Eric.
Just for a little clarity, block by block were hired to keep our streets clean, not necessarily safe. They were not hired to be security. They expanded their role just to try to combat some of the narrative that was being spewed out for downtown Santa Monica. That was never what they were intended to do, to be utilized in that manner. I do appreciate Block by Block, and I do support Block by Block. I was one of the board members that voted for them to stay instead of our security. So I just wanted to clarify some things.
Okay. So I worked with Block by Block. I was only there for about a month, but not only are you picking up trash and engaging with people, but you're also providing a sort of security. People need presence. When you're walking down the street or down the park, you need to know that there's somebody in the city that got your back. They'll call the police for you if somebody beats you to death. You know, especially particularly when it comes to women and homeless individuals experiencing, individuals experiencing homelessness and, women, they need someone there that's for them. To do that, Block by Block, simple.
I also sit on the downtown Santa Monica board, and Block by Block did have a portion of their employees that were safety ambassadors. That was in addition to their cleaning support ambassadors. We eliminated the safety ambassador portion to bring on a security force that I did not support with respect to having arms, and we changed that for them to be unarmed. But Block by Block did have a safety portion to their contract with us. It's no longer there. We still keep Block by Block for cleaning and maintenance, and the security offices down there will be till December.
Yeah, just on the point of private security, I think it would be a travesty if we started putting city funds towards private security for the promenade. If we want to add additional security, we should be focusing our police force on that and not private security. Our police force are trained professionals, and we wouldn't be able to control the types of training and policies and procedures in the same way as we would with our law enforcement. So I am absolutely opposed to private security for the promenade in the fashion that has been proposed, and hope that the current incumbents do not support that.
That's all Marcus first.
I saw you first. Maybe it was a shrug. I saw it. Okay. Go ahead.
So I understand not wanting the cities to supply for private security, but that private security was hired due to the lack of police officers. And they wanted a presence on the downtown 3rd Street Promenade. That's not something that I was in favor of. I'll say that once again. However, what I want everybody to realize that our community is in basically bargaining against downtown Santa Monica, because when they call, the police come downtown. How long does it take for them to respond to our residents? We are in direct combat for the police. We're in competition for it. So either they're going to serve the residents or they're going to serve the businesses. If we don't have enough police officers, guess what? Our residents suffer. It takes longer for us to get service in Pico neighborhood because they're serving downtown. That's what I want everybody to realize. This is what we're facing right now.
So, I actually spoke with someone back in 2020 in regards to my campaign then, and the city can utilize more cameras. You don't actually need a body. Police patrolling is great, but then they're there 2 seconds and they're gone the next. Have cameras to see what's being stolen, what is happening. So far the Citizen app, which is a great app, but having a presence on the promenade, walking the streets, someone you can chat with, hey, it's like having the lights on when you're not home. Like, it doesn't stop the crime, but it surely helps reduce it. When you have just somebody there, if no one's on the street and cops are back in their location and we just spent extra money on cops, you know, yeah, so.
So I wanted to comment on May 31st. I think that was in large part a lack of planning, and that's why our department was so underprepared and did not react very well. We now have a new police chief, and he literally wrote a book on police reform. And after May 31st, we got the Public Safety Reform and Oversight Commission, and they're tasked with enabling accountability and transparency and addressing issues that may come up. We do have a really great police force. They're very well-trained and great individuals, but they still need oversight. Thank you.
Perfect.
So I just wanted to comment on something you said, Marcus. You know, you talked about presence and vacancy, but that to me is an economic development problem, not a law enforcement problem. You know, one of the things that I've been disappointed with our current incumbent council members is that the 1200 block of the promenade hasn't been activated. We should be looking at ways to incentivize and penalize property owners on the promenade for not activating those spaces, those storefronts. We should be looking at ways to increase our foot traffic in downtown. There's a lot of empty airspace up there that could be used for housing. With increased presence, increased population, increased foot traffic, crime will go down, and people will feel more safe on the promenade.
So on the contrary, we have enacted our 1200. We have activated our 1200 block. Our 1200 block has had multiple events there on 1200 block. I think 1200 block has kind of had more priority than the other blocks on the downtown Santa Monica. We need more activation throughout the 3rd Street Promenade. And the downtown district is not just the 3rd Street Promenade. We are abandoning the rest of the businesses that are down there. We're not changing to them. We're just saying the 3rd Street Promenade, that's not the only street down there. Every business needs to be highlighted and given attention to in the same manner as the 3rd Street Promenade. Can I say one thing? My fellow board member, Lucia Tudor, was the first one to say that we need a vacancy tax on these properties that have been vacant for years. I just want to give him his credit where credit is due.
Okay, yeah, I think we're gonna move on.
Thanks, everybody. It was a really great exchange. We've got a lot to get to. This year, the city council took several votes to pass a resolution asking for the LA County Department of Health to stop administering its needle exchange harm reduction program in Reed Park. The council members who supported this resolution claimed they fully support harm reduction strategies, but believe the program needed to take place elsewhere for the safety of families and children who use the park. Do you agree with this decision, and what changes would you like to see in the county's needle exchange program? We start with Ericka.
So our harm reduction program, our needle exchange program, is something that really needs to be moved inside. I've had conversations with the county as well. I'm a community health worker, so in that capacity, I've had conversations with them. We need to be rehabilitation centers, but the question is where? Just like we've had conversations about where we're gonna build affordable housing and our community's neighbors come out and say they don't want it next to their house, the same thing with the needle exchange program. We're gonna have people come out and say that we don't want it here. We need a rehab, what we have inside, well, inside where? And how do we decide that? We have community forums, but who's gonna want a rehab center next to their house? I'm just throwing it out there, even though this is something that needs to be changed. We are not the county, we are the city of Santa Monica, and it's beyond our purview. We can lobby, we've been lobbying, but that hasn't helped any. we might have to take it a step further to the state.
Dan.
Thank you. I love this question because it is so polarizing and it does highlight a big difference between the candidates up here, all of us, and the incumbents. This is a data-backed program. President Biden, the CDC, the LA County Department of Health, and our LA County Supervisor all strongly support a clean syringe exchange program. It is a proven method for preventing deadly communicable diseases such as hepatitis and HIV. We have to go where the problem is. We can't expect people to come to a center in downtown or somewhere else within our community. We have to go solve the problem where it is. Are there things we could be doing better? Yes, absolutely. I would love to see a program of clean sweeps of the park following the distribution and exchange part of the program. I know that costs money, but that is something the county should be providing and we should be fighting for. I would like to see some form of secure sharps drop-off box be installed near the place where the program is happening. I'll just say the rally that happened about the clean needle exchange was a very sad display of leadership. And I don't think any candidate up here would ever stand to go to a rally where expletives are being thrown about any of our colleagues or about our city manager.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what's been said, and I think we need to perhaps start with something that I think we all agree with, which is that all Santa Monicans deserve to feel safe using our parks and public spaces. There's no question about that. But that being said, Dan's absolutely right. You know, there's the question of whether you're bringing services to where people are or people are going to where the services are. In this specific example, the services, which by the way are a very limited, I think it's 1 hour per month, right? Program, are being brought to where it is most needed. I do think that there are perhaps some improvements that we made. Oh, 2 hours per week, okay. You know, I think perhaps, you know, it could be moved inside the Miles Playhouse, for example, or some other indoor space. As Dan said, this is a data-driven, fact-based program that is saving lives. And when it comes to saving lives, that should be our priority. Thanks, Natalya.
So I think, so +1 to what Dan and Ellis have said, and Eric as well. Like, I think that there's something very important about this that we're forgetting to mention, is that the syringe exchange program doesn't just exchange dirty syringes for clean syringes. It also connects people to programs that help them get off of drugs if they are addicted. It helps them connect to other resources that they may need. And people who go to, who make use of these types of programs, according to the CDC, I believe are 5 or 6 times more likely than someone who does not to enter a recovery program and get off of drugs. I do agree we can explore other places possibly that are indoors that like might work better, but they're going where people are. And folks forget, this program has been going on much longer than people have been complaining about it. It's been going on for 4 years, and it used to be going to 3 different parks. It's now down to 1. It's a county program. We have very limited say over it. I support it. Thank you.
Yes, so I do support the program. I think it's, I mean, it's just pretty much echoing the Obama administration. I mean, I think that was one of the greatest presidents of all time. But you know, yeah, we need clean exchange needles. However, the way in which it's done needs to be improved. You know, I think it's very important that we, you know, reacclimate ourselves accordingly when it comes to what the city is asking for. You know, it's kind of hard to have input within a certain community when you haven't seen it for yourself. You know, you can have community members in the airport area, Pico, Wilshire, Montana, it'd be hard for me to say what's going on in Wilshire, and it'd be hard for them to say what's going on in this area. I think it's very important to have it placed indoors, very simple, not too far indoors, but somewhere in the community center or somewhere, you know, and not out on the streets. I think that's very important, and, you know, yeah, just to have that structure going forward. I think that would be one way to improve the program. Otherwise, you know, they're killing it. Thank you.
I too, support the needle exchange program. It's saving lives. The statistics show that the importance of the program, as you've heard from many of my colleagues, it's a county program that is done 2 hours in one park. I understand our residents when they say, you know, how can we protect our children in the parks with the program? I believe that it's important that we save lives. I believe that we need to look at this program as one that is supportive for our community in a lot of ways, because it is making individuals who have these drug problems be able to be seen, and hopefully, as you heard from Natalya, get other services. I'm always looking at how we can improve the program, or, you know, but if we relocate it and reduce the amount of individuals taking the program to successfully maybe get off drugs, then I have a real problem with that. So I support the program strongly. I do not believe in a public display that we saw in the park with some of our city leaders with respect to degrading our city manager and our city council. Those are the kind of things I've been talking about as far as etiquette and understanding proper decor as being a city council member. And these kind of issues will be resolved.
Thank you. Oh, Marcus.
You can keep the mic.
We want to make sure everyone can hear.
Okay. I just pretty much want to ask if anyone's aware as to where the programs are initiated throughout Santa Monica City. So far, I believe it's at Reed Park. I could be, yeah, okay. And so far, it's done on the streets, correct? In a van, okay. I asked because some of the viewers that are watching tonight might not be aware of the location. So I think it's great for voter information to know what we're talking about and where it's done. So thank you.
For those on Zoom, if they didn't hear, it's done in a van at Reed Park, so it is not out, you know, in the middle of the park.
Thank you. Some of the same loud voices who complain about the needle exchange program also claim the 3rd Street Promenade has become abandoned by the residents because people are afraid to go there and businesses are afraid to open. In your opinion, how has downtown Santa Monica fared over the last few years since the COVID shutdown, and what more should be done to make it thrive? And we'll start with Natalya.
Instead of the passing of the baton, we have a passing of the mic. So I think that our downtown has definitely suffered from COVID, but I think we're on the way to recovery. There are for sure a lot more actions that we can take to help support not only the promenade, but all of downtown for success. We can help create opportunities for smaller businesses, for entrepreneurs of all different backgrounds. There's a lot that we can do and a lot we can explore. And I'm grateful to Ericka for bringing up the commercial vacancy tax. Words are hard. I think that that's something that can help incentivize folks who are keeping their storefronts that they own unopened, and they're keeping them vacant and keeping the prices for those locations artificially high because they can afford to. I think if we incentivize them to rent to folks and lower the rents to what market rate actually is for those spaces, we'll be able to get a lot more businesses and more people will go there. Thank you.
Can I ask onto what she's saying? Sure. Okay. How Oh, yes. Sorry, just the last thing you said, it was pretty much, that you would have, you would ask the business owners to reduce the cost of rent. How would you do that? Yeah,
So it wouldn't be asking them directly to reduce rent, but it'd be incentivizing them to do that by making there be a cost for keeping those spaces vacant. So if you have to pay however much money every month or every year or whatever for keeping, your commercial space open that you own, instead of renting it to someone, you're gonna wanna lower the amount that you're renting it for to rent it. I mean, the amounts, that's gonna have to be figured out, and there's a lot more that would need to go into it. But it's more of an incentive rather than us going to them saying, hey, lower your rents.
thank you.
I actually need more than 2 minutes to talk about downtown Monica. I've been here on the board for 12 years and seeing how the city has handled downtown Santa Monica. Most people don't realize that our downtown Santa Monica, those 3 blocks are made up of at least 35 different property owners. We are not a commercial area like a mall. So what we need to do, one, from city council's perspective, I think, is working with our property owners. Downtown Santa Monica is safe. I don't want to hear people when they say they aren't safe. That narrative is not correct. However, there are many property owners, I shouldn't say many, there are some property owners that haven't really been good city residents with us, and we need to work with them to open up their places. Downtown Santa Monica, there are some properties that have been closed for over 12 years. I mean, that's horrible that we see properties closed that long. So what we need to do is work with property owners to find a way to reactivate our downtown 3rd Street Promenade. I do believe that with the work of downtown Santa Monica and the city governor, our city council, we can find ways to reactivate our downtown, to actually look at new type of businesses coming in. Retail has changed, okay? Thank you.
Oh, thank God. That works perfectly. Good responses, Barry. Thank you. Okay, so when it comes to downtown Santa Monica, I think I talk about this a lot amongst my friends and family, and trying to figure out a way to increase business, operations and engagements. And the only way that I can see that happening is by the city buying those properties instead of they constantly. What I have seen walking up and down are businesses opening. It's some ridiculous store, it's kind of like it doesn't befit the city. So it gets about 6 months, 12 months, then it closes. Then we get another one, then it closes. Then we get another one, and it closes. What I would encourage is the city to buy those lands, or from some nonprofit organization, we work with them, they buy the land, and then, to encourage Black-owned businesses and LGBTQ-owned businesses, that the city works in a way to reduce the cost, but the only way to do that I can see it is owning the property. So, yeah, that's how I envision increasing the retail in downtown Santa Monica Promenade. Thank you.
Okay, so downtown Santa Monica has had an incremental recovery. It's slow. Retailers, basically consumers, do not want a brick and mortar experience anymore. We have pop-ups. That's what's successful. We have experiences like when the movie's opening, movie premieres. We have more of an experience base to bring business back to downtown Santa Monica. Things, festivals, fairs, virtual reality, gaming, not refilling our stores with more retail, because we have been experiencing a lot of retail theft. I'm not saying that downtown Santa Monica is unsafe. I walk around downtown. I've gone through the parking lots at 2 o'clock in the morning once I got appointed to downtown Santa Monica, because I wanted to see what the issues are. Boots on the ground. I went to go see, as some of the constituents rumored that the parking garages were unsafe and unclean. I wanted to see myself, because I knew Block by Block was doing their job. And every time I came at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I got up out my bed to go see. they were cleaning the parking lots. So I take my hat off to Block by Block. I know they've gone above and beyond, and that's not what they were hired for. They were hired to clean, but not to patrol and not to be the pseudo police. Thank you.
I just want to say, when it comes to Block by Block, there's no doubt that they're doing a stellar job. That's why I'm encouraging for there to be more presence of Block by Block, because they give a damn. They actually care about the residents. The people that they hire are specifically chosen. They go through a rigorous process. And it's something about them, not the additional private security. That I don't think that that's appropriate for Santa Monica. It gives a different feel than, presence of Block by Block, but their presence is beautiful. So yeah, thanks for you.
So I understand what you're saying about Block by Block. They are doing an extraordinary job. However, you do understand this is not what they were hired for. These things that, as far as security, private security, was not something that we wanted, but this is what the businesses down there demanded. So it took us $1.7 million to get to where we're at now. And Block by Block, even with their training and everything else, still are not the police. Just being perfectly clear.
Yes, I am very clear on that. That's kind of the point. I believe that the more that we can reduce the amount of the need to call police rather than to call, Block by Block, is tremendously helpful. Just think about the situation with George Floyd. You call police and they show up, not to say that that's how Santa Monica is, but sometimes it takes, you got to talk to the cashier clerk before you talk to the supervisor. Let there be some sort of level that you got to get to before it gets to the police officer. It doesn't mean that they're not readily available, but that would help reduce the cost, and they can put their resources and priority on something else. And then you can have the Block by Block to be there to show a presence like, hey, I got you. I'm not sure if I can handle the situation, but I can do my best. If not, I'll call the police. I'm not saying that they need to do everything. Yeah.
So when I've met with business owners, specifically in downtown and along Pico Boulevard, the biggest complaint that I hear isn't about homelessness or retail theft. It's about our permitting process and about how long it takes for a permit to go through our city staff. And that's largely because of a lot of the cuts that we had to go through during COVID. I think it should be a priority that we focus on our permitting timelines. I'm really appreciative of some of the initiatives that Councilmember Terosis and Councilmember Zwick have sponsored to drive timelines and accountability for our permitting process. And I think that when it comes to the promenade in downtown specifically, the answers are there. The former downtown Santa Monica CEO, Kathleen Ralston, under former chair Barry Snell, and I know Ericka was involved in this too, developed the 3rd Street Promenade Stabilization and Vitality Plan and Promenade 3.0. And those plans have sat on a shelf for the past 4 years. I think we should dust those off. And I think the candidates on this table are interested in that. And that is the way we return the vitalization to downtown. I agree with Ericka. I'm there at all hours of the day and night, and I recognize I moved through the world as a young male, but I've never felt unsafe on the promenade. And when I have seen incidents happening, they've been handled very professionally with our ambassador staff, with Block by Block, with our business owners, and with our law enforcement. I've never felt unsafe on the promenade, and that's not to say that is not possible. Obviously, incidents happen, but I think it is bad for our community image to be going on Fox News and other news sources saying that Santa Monica is a hellhole when it is absolutely not.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I think you hit the nail on the head. And you're absolutely right with respect to the permitting delays. I've spoken to a lot of friends in the restaurant business all across Santa Monica who have really, really suffered because of the slow processing times. And as others have said, retail is evolving. Folks want to go to experiential uses and experiential spaces. We need to figure out how our zoning and planning process can facilitate bringing those types of uses on board in Santa Monica. One thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is we need city council members who will support labor peace in our hospitality industry. I know at least 4, maybe 5 of my colleagues up here were standing side by side with Unite Here in the fight for fair wages and the fight for fair contracts. I'm very glad to see that we've achieved labor peace in our community in the hospitality industry. You know, I encourage all of you to look to where people stand when it comes to supporting our workers.
Oh, sorry, Marcus.
Kudos to you guys, hats off to supporting the hospitality workers because they need it. Particularly because I was in hospitality. Just in regards, I keep hearing downtown Santa Monica, I never felt unsafe. Me being in Santa Monica, I might not feel unsafe, but I'm thinking about the folks that are touring here, that are visiting here, don't know how to communicate with a person experiencing homelessness or mental health or drug addiction. So I can understand how it can be unsafe. I mean, I know how to clock a situation in a matter of a second, but some people can't do that. So that needs to be looked at as well.
Okay, Congressman Steny Hoyer famously said a budget is a statement of values. Last week, the city council voted to approve a budget that would hire 4 new police officers in exchange for eliminating repairs to sidewalks and alleys. How would you approach the challenge of budgeting, and what areas of our city budget would you prioritize funding? And where would you decrease funding from in order to make that change? And we start with Barry.
Well, being a CPA, I will look at areas where we have not utilized funding correctly and move into areas that we can fund areas. I think funding our public schools is a #1 priority, and we've always done that. We have excellent public schools. 2, I really do think that we need to look at our housing and fund our housing supply where necessary. With respect to our police department, we've done a good job of funding the police department. Like I said, overtime is very high. If we look at hiring more police officers to reduce overtime, I think that's another way of doing it. We constantly have to take a look at our budget and see where we're allocating funds, where we're being effectively allocating those funds to the community in a way that is being productive. I would be constantly looking at our budget. I wouldn't have budget discussions 11 o'clock at night to 3 o'clock in the morning, so our city residents couldn't listen to it. It's just not effective. But I definitely would take a look at our budget and see how, remember, we have an $800 million budget, and with 90,000 residents, 8 square miles, that's a huge budget, and we need to be able to make sure that we're allocating resources where it's needed the most. And obviously with our homeless situation, our public school situation would be areas I'd be really conscious about.
Would it be possible to repeat the questions that I understand correctly?
How would you approach the challenge of budgeting, and what areas of our city budget would you prioritize funding, and where would you decrease funding from in order to make those changes?
Got it. Yes, so I would highly encourage affordable housing in general, affordable housing, transitional housing. I would highly encourage safer streets. And I don't mean more police officers. I mean roads that people can bike on without getting hit by a car, roads that people can walk on without worrying about construction, roads that people can cross the street without worrying about getting hit by a car that's not used to, all-way traffic, and no highlighted crosswalks, safer roads and safer streets in all regards. That's what I encourage. That's what I envision. In regards to how to allocate that, part of it is going to be looking at I want to find a way in a sense to work with the budget, but I want to find a way to add money to the budget. Instead of relying on every last dollar, what does it say? Don't suit your lifestyle to fix your income. Fix your income to suit your lifestyle. Our lifestyle is constantly growing and changing and adapting. If we can set up a budget in a year, it's gonna change. Bringing in more funding, bringing in more federal, states, and even nonprofit money, tech for good money, for schools, programs, Black-owned businesses, you name it. There needs to be more engagement in that regard, so that's what I envision.
Yeah, directly on the point of funding our schools, we need candidates who will support the continued joint use agreement with the school district, which is coming up for renewal a lot sooner than we think. Yeah, Cindy Hoyer made a great point about budgeting being a statement of values. I had the honor of meeting him 2 years ago, and it really reinforced the point about budget being the core of what we do in government. To give you a few specific answers here, I would absolutely focus on refunding the Housing Trust Fund. I would absolutely support hiring more code enforcement officers. And to that point, this is a counterintuitive point that gets lost in budget discussions. Cities save money by hiring more staff. It generally costs between 1.5 to 2 times the cost when you have to outsource municipal staffing functions outside of local government. So we do need to hire more staff when jobs are being outsourced. We've seen in many communities across America that the best return on your investment for municipal spending is emergency rental relief programs and building more housing. Those are the programs that will ensure that we're not spending more money on the back end with supportive services for folks who are experiencing homelessness and housing insecurity. And I'll leave my answer at that.
So I do agree with a lot of what's been said. I also want to point out that our capital improvement budget is at 61% of pre-COVID levels. We've got $458 million in unfunded capital improvement projects. And those are a lot of those things that are going to save us more money in the long run, because if you think about it in terms of, let's just say, let's take, for example, a home. When something breaks, if you fix it now, it's going to cost you less money than if you leave it to get worse. I think that I totally agree with increasing numbers of folks who are working for code enforcement and bringing in those fines and making sure people are safe in their homes. I think that where to get the money from, it should be pointed out that of our general fund revenues for 23-24, 72.5% come from local taxes. For 24-25, it's 71.9%. So let's just say 72% of our general fund revenues come from local taxes. So if we set up our local businesses for success, then we're going to be taking in more taxes, more revenues. That's more funds to do good things in the city with. I also agree with paying back the Housing Trust Fund. We borrowed $36.5 million from it. That's far too much. We need to pay that back. Thank you.
So I think I really love this question around budgeting and values, because I think it really highlights the distinctions between the candidates at this table and the incumbents we are challenging. I think first and foremost, our Housing Trust Fund needs to be restored. We are a pro-housing group of candidates, and I think that should be a priority. I think we should be protecting our investments in schools, in street safety. Ellis, thanks for calling out our joint use facilities agreement. I absolutely support that. And I think we should be investing in technology that is able to scale our public safety professionals, whether that is our law enforcement through trying to participate in speed cameras, or code enforcement and recoupment of fines and fees. Where to get those funds? You know, I believe every candidate up here supported Measure GS in 2022. And, you know, I will continue to support Measure GS as a revenue source for our schools and for affordable housing and rental protection programs. Like I said earlier, I'd like to see us lobby to participate in a speed camera, the speed camera pilot that the state is allowing on PCH. I think that would be a great opportunity to establish an enterprise fund to go towards street safety. I'd like to explore dynamic parking pricing and see that as an opportunity for greater revenues for our community.
Well, my first priority would be to restock our housing, refund the money for GS measure that was taken to 36 million. Also to rehire some of the 400 that were laid off pre-COVID. The workload on our staff right now is that of 3 or 4 people. The only way that we can recover and then speed up like the permitting process and the other things that we are short-staffed on is to rehire these people. And that would also improve the toxic work environment that our staff is working with. We'll save money in that way because right now, a lot of our staff is ready to leave. We were gonna have a mass exodus. We can save a lot of money by retaining staff, by decreasing their workload. And when you start talking about sidewalk repair and all these things, we don't have enough staff to do that either. So that's how I would decrease the funding, you know, for other things, is just reallocate those funds in that way. And then we could save money. And then looking at ways to generate revenue. We have some things that are in development as far as the signs that are like that are generating revenue as far as the advertising dollars from those signs that are putting on the sides of the buildings in the downtown area. We look into time, sorry.
Yes. Ericka just brought up a good one though. My response was into, Dan said something, but it's missing me now. Good golly. I believe his statement was in regards to, budget and, gaining, no, it's gone. You can, my focus is back on the Ericka now. So how would you accomplish that, everything you just said, like in regards to, yeah. Words are amiss right now.
All right, let's just move on.
Okay, I think it's really amazing, just what you suggested in regards to, budget. I think our city does need to hire more people, but how would you do that, throughout the budget is my question.
Well, we increase parking fees, number one. Number two is we are having a pilot program for those ads that are going on the side of the buildings. We tap into some of those funds and see how we can reallocate some of those funds as far as to rehire some of the staff that have gone.
Okay.
Okay, the city council voted to ask staff to return with a proposal on how to repair a past act of racist land seizure of the Ebony Beach Club property. What specific forms of reparations do you think are appropriate in this case? And are there any other examples in our city where reparations should be pursued? And in this case, the randomizer found the exact order the candidates are sitting. So we'll start with Barry.
Our state is coming up with, obviously, proposals for reparation. And I think our city should take a look at our state proposal for reparation and outline our city goals for reparation for African Americans based on some goals from the state. Yes, I would support some kind of initiative for giving back to the individuals for the property that was on the ocean. It was, policies that discourage individuals from having African Americans live in certain areas, redlining, are things that we can never take lightly and that we can never look upon and say, won't do that again. We have to look at policies that will enact, will support those things, that will inclusiveness for African Americans. I'm a strong believer that myself sitting on council, I'll always be looking at those kind of policies that negatively affect certain ethnic groups. And so those are just some of my thoughts about that.
Thank you. And let's begin by being clear that no matter what reparations are offered, it can never repair the trauma and the loss of generational wealth that was stolen, not just from Silas White's family, but from so many members of the Santa Monica community. It's something that can never, ever be repaired, but we have to take steps. We have to start putting words into actions. Earlier, Santa Monica made an apology to the Black community. But again, words are not enough. You've got to actually take action. You got to pay people back. You got to give people money. Some of the other forms of reparation that folks in this audience have supported and have advocated for include things like a right to return. For example, getting to the top of the affordable housing list for folks who are descendants of those who were displaced by the freeway and the Civic Center. And more broadly, I think we all as a community need to do better about supporting Black and Indigenous voices and those who have been marginalized from our community over the past century and longer. We need to make sure that our boards and commissions reflect the diversity of our community, and we need to ensure that the youth of folks who were kicked out of our city have an opportunity to return and that they aren't priced out of Santa Monica.
Really great answer, Ellis. Thank you for that. Really great. So I do diversity, equity, and inclusion at my day job for a workforce of 1.3 million. And this is deeply important to me. Ellis mentioned the right to return program that then Councilmember McEwen had sponsored, and I really supported that at the time and still do. This year I supported Councilmember Caros's engagement with Where Is My Land and made the motion at this club to endorse that item at council, not just to return the land, but to also provide restitution for 60 years of lost generational wealth and enterprise. I think we should be looking at sponsoring the reparations bill, specifically the Assembly Bill 3089 for the formal apology, ACA8, the prohibition of slavery, and SB 1050, the Freedmen Affairs Agency, specifically to address property taken through racially motivated eminent domain, which has happened a lot in this community. I've been really disappointed that the council majority did not direct staff to pursue grants from the Reconnecting Communities and Neighborhoods Grants Program when the federal bipartisan infrastructure bill was passed. Instances like we've experienced in Santa Monica in the Pico and Broadway neighborhoods, Secretary Buttigieg is deeply interested in repairing that past harm, and our city has not done anything about it. And so I think that was a real missed opportunity to begin repairing that environmental and racial harm caused by the 10 freeway. And I think all of the candidates up here would be great allies in pursuing restitution and repairing that harm that our city has caused.
We're just going in.
It all worked out.
So, first of all, Ebony Beach Club, this is an example of eminent domain here in our city. That's the reason why I was in Sacramento with the NAACP supporting Senate Bill 1050. It needs to be not just the land being given back, but there's so many years of equity that have been lost by that family to make them whole, and that our city now is in a disastrous state as far as economically. What needs to be done is that they should be given a percentage of the proceeds until they reach the fair market value. The Black apology from the city of Santa Monica needs a timeline, something that's sustainable and something that is in comparison to what was lost. A lot of our Black community has suffered from the 10 freeway being installed and their land being grabbed. They suffered with asthma, cancer, and other health maladies that cannot be quantified by just money. We need, and the right to return is nice, but it's not nice for people that lost their homes that they owned. You cannot replace a home that was owned by a unit that you can rent. We need other sustainable solutions other than just the right to return. We need a right to home ownership. These are the answers that we need, and plus so many more. Economically, we have been raped, and it needs to be fulfilled. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just echo pretty much everything that has been said before, and add, I think it would be tremendously helpful to, that particular community to have some sort of program that adds on with everything else. You know, we need housing made available to them, you know, sure, yes. Have, you know, homeownership, have land, space, land deed, you know, whatever, sent back to the original owners, but also I'm thinking about the friends they would have made along the way. Who would they have been, you know? So I'm looking at the businesses here. Again, I revert back to the fact that the city owning these properties and taking them back from these retail shops and putting up opportunities for ownership within the Black community. That's how you pay it back. Build generational wealth, give opportunities back to the young youth, the Black youth. That needs to happen, along with everything else that everybody else just said. Thank you.
I am not an expert in reparations, but we have the benefit of having some truly incredible experts from who we can draw on their ideas. For those of you who aren't regular attendees or viewers of the Santa Monica Dem Club, I recommend going on YouTube and watching a couple of meetings ago where we had an excellent panel discussion on reparations. There was also a California Reparations Task Force, and the entire chapter 22 of their report lays out a bunch of different strategies for how we can address racially motivated and eminent domain, all of the other issues and problems that folks continue to suffer because of past injustices. As some of my colleagues have mentioned, the people who were harmed by these racist policies didn't only include African Americans. There were also members of other marginalized communities who were impacted, like the Tongva people and other Native American tribes, Latino Americans and Asian Americans. I think that we absolutely need to start with the African American community because I believe that there is the most clear guidance for how to address those issues. I think that the other thing we really need to be conscious of is whatever policies and programs we enact, they need to be done with the voices and with the buy-in of the folks who were harmed. The people who are descendants, and hopefully some of the folks who were harmed, it might be too long ago, but they really need to have a say in what the right way to make it right is. So I would defer to them and I would defer to the experts. Thank you.
Do we know how to find these people? You know, like, is there a database?
I see Angela nodding her head.
Yeah, right. I think that would be super important to expand on that. You know, like what database we were collecting that from.
Looks like Dan has a response to that.
I'm sorry? Yeah. Oh, got it. Okay.
So that is being proposed and worked on by the Office of the Attorney General and the reparations bills package in Sacramento to start collecting data around descendants of former slaves in California.
Okay, for those itching, we're getting near the end here, don't worry, but we do have to at least touch on the issue of mobility, and for those who missed it, Streets for All did a really comprehensive debate on the topic of mobility, and you should all watch that for a much more deep dive. But just to get one question there, because it's a very important issue for this club. What is Santa Monica's biggest deficiency when it comes to supporting alternative forms of transportation that you believe would make it easier for more people to get around Santa Monica more easily and safely? And we'll start with Ellis.
Biggest deficiency? Was that the question?
Sorry, the biggest deficiency, yeah.
Yeah.
when it comes to-
Yeah, not the biggest efficiency, biggest deficiency. There are a lot of really easy, quick things we can do, and I encourage all of you to check out the Streets for All debate, which is on YouTube right now. My colleagues and I listed a bunch of really great suggestions. Some really simple fixes include things like daylighting. We learned how in Hoboken, New Jersey, lives are saved simply by just expanding the mounted red curve and defensible space that improves where you can see coming around corners. Here in Santa Monica, just a few months ago, we heard from a group of high school students at Santa Monica High School who walk and bike to school every day and really put their lives at risk doing so. We need to make sure that routes to schools are safe for folks who want to walk and bike to school. We've got to make sure that our bus system is fully built out and fully supported. Our city is in the process of doing that right now. I ride the 7th bus to planning commission meetings. Really enjoy it. Ride what I still call the Expo line to work in downtown LA. And we need to support a culture in which folks really embrace safe, walkable, livable cities where folks can live where they work. And it bears emphasis that depending on which statistics you look at in Santa Monica, our population either doubles or triples daytime because folks can't live where they work. If we're talking about public health and public safety, we got to make sure people can live where they work here in Santa Monica, bring down carbon emissions, and make our communities much safer.
I agree. We should definitely look at our video from Streets for All. We all talked about it, very similar with it. Some of the things that I love what we've done with our 17th Street bike plan. And we need to also reduce the amount of traffic by having speed bumps. I love the fact that on Wilshire Boulevard, we're looking at making people to make right turns only. These are things that will help in the safety area. We are a small 8 square mile community that needs to be able to walk and have other multiple mobility ideas rather than just driving a car. We need to reduce our parking by increasing the parking rates. I think that would be something that will reduce it. We don't realize that at any given day, and Ellis mentioned this, that we grow from 90,000 people to 180,000 people, 40,000 on our downtown. Most of those individuals are tourists that don't use cars. So we need to look at ways to reduce traffic. We need to look at ways to have more areas on our streets where traffic is slower. I love what we've done on the 17th Street, as I said before. We need to implement those kind of processes throughout our city. And one of the things that is good about our mobility plan is from a health standpoint and from an environmental standpoint, it benefits our community. So those are just some ideas. I'm a strong believer of the bike plan also.
Feel like a bit of a broken record up here, but I think our greatest deficiency is having elected city leadership that believes in mobility and multimodal streets. I think if you elect any of us up here, myself included, I'm in favor of the city following best practices promoted by NACDO. And if you'll let me get a little wonky here, Donald Shoup and Jeff Speck and all of the incredible professionals out there that have dedicated their lives to studying multimodal streets and how they improve safety in our neighborhoods, around our schools, in our downtowns. I think all of our lighted intersections should have leading pedestrian indicators to allow pedestrians to get out into the streets before the lights turn green. I think we should be using raised crosswalks and pedestrian islands near our schools. I think we should be using bulb outs where appropriate to slow down cars on our neighborhood streets. infrastructure that Ellis mentioned, like bike racks and garden planters and bollards in every daylighting zone, so that the USPS trucks don't park there, so that the Amazon delivery drivers don't park there, and UPS and FedEx. Those are meant to be open spaces so that pedestrians and drivers can see each other when crossing the street. I think the most important thing here is that we elect a new council that is dedicated to street safety.
Great answer, great answer. Yes, I believe that, let's see, I've worked in Santa Monica before, you know, and all I had to do was walk. That's not always the case. You know, just last week I had to go to LAX. There's not one designated bus lane that gets you directly here to LAX. There's not a designated bus lane to go from here to downtown LA. How do we work? So again, big picture here. I love the ideas when it comes to Santa Monica and Santa Monica alone, but my goal would be to encourage working with on a regional approach. How do we work with Metro? How do we work with LA DOT? How do we work with every entity to ensure that transportation is efficient, not only for people that work in Santa Monica, but people that live here and work somewhere else, or vice versa? We need to get traffic flowing easily. I would encourage tolls to be put in place to incentivize parking at somewhere, some bus stop somewhere, and take a train here to Santa Monica. I would encourage for there to be some sort of, what do you call that? Commuter express from Santa Monica all the way to LAX. Commuter express from here to downtown LA. It takes us too long to move within the city. A train takes about an hour. So I would just highly encourage for certain areas to just be improved big picture wise, not just streets. And, you know, I think it's amazing because I'm also putting into my initiatives is to have longer walk times. Currently it's about 20 seconds. If I was differently abled, I don't know how to make it across the street in 20 seconds. I got the longest legs ever, you know, so yeah, there's definitely ways to improve, but those are what I would run with. Thank you.
I have to take a deep breath because, as many of you know, I'm a parent of 3 sons. Recently, my son was injured in trying to avoid a car where he was impaled, and you know, he hit an artery. And for the last month, I've been going back and forth to the hospital, back and forth to the ER. So this is a very important issue for me. And I also think about my friend who got hit by a car. We do need these raised crosswalks. We need the diverters. We need more lights. We do need things that last longer than 20 seconds for you to get across the street. Our scramblers only work for people that are ambulant, you know, that can walk. If you have your mobility, you're fine. People that are trying to get across the street in wheelchairs on their own cannot make it in that time. We need more things that are ADA compliant. Our unhoused neighbors not always have access to the wheelchairs that they need, and they're on crutches. If they're injured, their feet are injured most of the time, and them trying to get across the street, they're liable to get hit. We're not talking about mental health when we're talking about this. We're talking about healthcare access that they are not provided. So these things are most important. We're not going to even start in on the school district and what goes on with our children. Our crossing guards have been hit by cars as well, just trying to cross our children, make our children safe. We need more safety access for our children to walk to school. I'm up and down Michigan with my high schoolers, and I see it's a travesty. The cars, the bikes, and our kids walking all at the same time. It's an accident waiting to happen every day, and it's piled up every day. We can't even get out of the house most days. So we need improved routes and improved safe routes for our children to get to school in a safe manner. The traffic diverters help, but they're not foolproof. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure I could talk on this for an hour, but since I only have 60 seconds, I will try to be as efficient as possible. Totally agree with leading pedestrian intervals. We should institute no right on red in a lot more places so folks don't get accidentally hit. We need to end beg buttons to make it easier for pedestrians to get across the street without having to go out of their way to press a button, especially if their hands are full. Like that is pretty clear. Totally agree with needing a more regional approach. And part of the reason that the train takes too long is because we don't have traffic signal preemption for the train. So, but that's not something Santa Monica can do. That's something that the Metro would have to do. Number one priority, reduce speeds on our streets. Because as we know, the largest factor in whether or not, or the severity of an injury is at what speed a car is going when they hit another car, a person, someone on a bike, etc. So we need to slow down cars, especially on neighborhood streets. We can look at things like speed humps. We can look at making the streets a bit narrower. I know the street that I live on is fairly narrow. It doesn't have a bike lane, but you have to slow down if there are two cars passing each other. You can't go fast on there. So yeah, reduce speeds. Thanks.
Does it matter that it's directed towards Ericka?
Go ahead.
Okay, just a quick follow-up, because I know you mentioned a lot in regards to, like measures and things like that. Do you believe no right on red is helpful in regards to, especially particularly the situation with your, your family, that it would help, or would it not help?
Actually, my son was almost hit in a four-way stop. So the right on red wouldn't necessarily help because there was no light. We're in residential areas. There is no light there. It's just a stop sign. And a lot of people like what the CHP and police call is a California road, where they don't necessarily stop and they roll through it and they hit people. Even if impacted at 30 miles per hour, you can do a lot of damage. My son was impaled by trying to avoid a car. The car was trying to avoid him, but they were going too fast. We need to slow down the rates, speed bumps, speed humps, the rambler strips. I'm sorry, I'm saying it incorrectly. For people we have a lot of people that are distracted while they're driving, so they're not paying attention. And when they're not paying, and that impacts also the bike lanes. So, and those strips that I'm talking about are inexpensive. So these are things that need to be solution-based. I understand that, we have a lot of ideas, but as you're walking the street or as you're biking it, you come up with more solutions, and especially when your family's impacted.
Okay, we have a lightning round question before the closing statement, and we'll go with Natalya and come down this way just to be more efficient about it. If your friend from out of town was coming to visit you in Santa Monica for the first time, where would you be sure to go in order to show them why you love living here?
Love this question. I honestly wouldn't even have to go too far, assuming they were staying with me on my couch. I would take them across the street to Gilbert's El Indio, which is a family-owned restaurant that's been around now for 50 years. Shout out to Gilbert's. And then I would take them for a walk around the Pico neighborhood, especially including this park, and I would share with them the incredible history of this place and everything that folks had to fight for to get this wonderful, amazing resource in their community. This library has award-winning architecture for folks who didn't know. There are so many things that this park provides for our community. And I actually serve on the Virginia Avenue Park Advisory Board, so I may be a little bit biased. We are also getting a commercial kitchen here that'll enable folks to become entrepreneurs. There's going to be a community garden that's going to be coming in on 19th Street. There's so much beauty in this neighborhood, and I would love to show that to them.
I would take them to, it depends, because I'm a very athletic person, so I like to exercise. If they didn't want to exercise and wanted to be outdoors, I would take them to the Santa Monica Stairs. I would head down, I would go up to the PCH, just walking under PCH, under that bridge, that road, like underneath, is so cool to come up, and then it's the beach, you know, and you're away from, you know, tourism and everything. You really get to experience like Santa Monica by itself. Head on down, go to Will Rogers, you know, great community there with the, you know, rainbow towers and things like that, and everyone playing volleyball. You just really get a feel for what the authentic Santa Monica is about. So I love doing that. But, you know, in regards to food, I would take them to the end of Santa Monica Pier to, I believe, Mauricio's. No, it's not Mauricio's. It could be. There's a restaurant at the end of the pier, Mexican, Marisol. I knew it started with an M. Amazing. Yeah, anytime someone's coming, I'm like, let's take a walk, let's look at the beach, let's look at the pier. And, you know, it just depends, you know, some of my relatives, they're a little antisocial, so we'll go this way, but if they want to meet people, we'll go on a pier, you know, just all depends. But Santa Monica by itself, it's a really beautiful city. Yeah, so that's what I would do.
Okay, so I guess I'm the foodie out of the bunch. I know I don't look like I'm the foodie, but I'm the foodie. We would go to Gilbert's, we'd go to the Peter House, we would go to different spots throughout Santa Monica. I'm not telling you guys all my spots. I don't want to. We would go to the Belmar Project. We would go to the oldest church in Santa Monica. We'd go to the pier. I would take them to different places throughout our city that are unique to Santa Monica and tell them the stories of how we got to where we are today. Of course, I'd bring them to Virginia Avenue Park, because you have to meet the community to see what's special about the city, because we are the heart of the city. Community is the heart of the city. So I'd take them to introduce them to some of the community members as well. Thank you.
All right, I'd start our day at two of my favorite places, my local cafe, Cafe Rousseau and DK's Donuts. Shout out to the best donuts in town. Sorry to everyone else. You know, pier board members, so obviously I'd have to take them to the pier and show them around. I love the pier. It's the heart of our tourism industry. And then I'm gay, so I take our friends down the beach path to the edge of town to Ginger Rogers. We'd hang out there for the afternoon, and we'd end our night on Main Street getting drinks.
Yeah, Main Street is a gem, and yeah, I'm a foodie too, but I gotta give credit to my niece who's in the audience who works at Holy Grail Donuts. Yeah, there's some incredible food. I'm a foodie too. But yeah, here on Vigo, for example, like just the block with Laris, Ray's for breakfast, the Brixton right across the street, some really incredible spots there. Yeah, I would definitely take the out-of-towners to the pier and the beach, which is really the heart and soul of our community. And a few other quick shout outs for food, Milo and Olive, folks, come on.
So I'm a beach bum, so they would go directly to the beach on a bike with me originally. But then I would actually take them to the Santa Monica Museum that I think we love so much. I'd go to the Airport Museum, and I'd love to talk to them about our beach bike lanes and what have you that we deal with. But I'm also thinking about the Annenberg. I think that the house down there is a cute little house, and it really tells the history of Santa Monica. She was an amazing citizen of Santa Monica. And then after that, I guess everyone talks about foods. There's, Castle Martins on the promenade. I'm a big supporter of. And I would definitely, obviously take them to the pier, but I would definitely take them to all our parks. Let them see what our parks are like and really sit down with them and talk about how easy it is to walk around Santa Monica and how safe it is.
All good responses, but we were actually looking for a Santa Monica Democratic Club meeting. Okay, we're. Yep, it's true. Okay, so now we're gonna go to the closing statements, and we have 1 minute on the clock for each candidate, starting with Marcus.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. You know, I would just like to say, that I'm really thankful to be here. I think it's very cool. I think it's awesome that the community here is involved. I have a few of my friends and family members watching in, and also community residents that are watching in. I think it's cool that they're joining us online. I believe that the more that community is engaged and involved and very conscious on who they're voting, and also, you know, not looking at just what people say, but what people do, you know, and it's kind of hard to see, but, you know, I guess track records would help, but at the end of the day, I'm very thankful that I'm here, and I'm glad that, you know, the community's being, you know, engaged and involved, and I look forward to, you know, seeing you all on the campaign trail.
Yeah, thank you, John, for putting this together into the entire Democratic Club. And big thanks to Sam for being a fantastic timekeeper tonight. But folks, this is a really consequential election. And I know that you hear that every 2 years or every 4 years when elections come around. But the folks who you're electing in 2024 will really have a tremendous impact on the future of our city. These are the folks who will be overseeing the closure of the airport. These are the folks who are going to oversee the 7th cycle housing element when it comes up in a few years. These are the people who are going to be working with our other stakeholders across the LA area when the Olympics come to town. These are the folks who are going to be building a city that needs to be affordable, a city where people have an opportunity to live here after they graduate from school, a city where folks have an opportunity to go down the street and feel safe, where we don't have to worry about traffic violence. We need people who are experts, people who understand policy, people who will lead as leaders do with a sense of decorum and understand what good governance means. We need people who will bring our city fully into the 21st century, and I respectfully, graciously ask for your support.
I too, John, want to thank you for this and thank the Democratic Club. I've been a Democratic member since I've been here in Santa Monica. I was part of the AD 50, AD 51 for the last 6 years. I honestly believe that this is one of the most critical times for our city. We're coming out of COVID, we're coming out of the civil unrest. We need responsible, experienced, and knowledgeable individuals on our city council. I've sat on the school board, the college board, and now getting ready to sit on city council board. I've sat 12 years on the downtown Santa Monica board. I understand policy. I understand how to get things done, networking with individuals. And I really think that we as a community need to look at leaders that are progressive, that aren't looking at their own individual needs, but the needs of the community. And those are the kind of things that I'm bringing forward to you at this time. There hasn't been an African-American man on Santa Monica City Council since 1977, 47 years. But it seems like 100 years, okay? And we need to change that. We need to have individuals that care about the community, that really listen to the community members, are always visible and willing to understand that we don't know everything, that we're willing to understand and learn from our citizens. And hopefully I bring that kind of expertise to this city council. So thank you.
Thank you, Democratic Club. I am here for my community. I'm here to listen. I'm here to be responsive. I'm here to be of action and to come and look and see. None of us are perfect here. We all are experienced, but we all need to be responsive as well. We have to listen to the voices of the people and their experiences. I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to also be conscious of the hour as well. I thank you for the people that are supporting me, the people that are here online, and I'm here also to ask for your support as well. in my my fight to be on city council. Thank you.
So I'd just like to echo everyone's comments, thanking the Dem Club for providing this forum for folks to hear from all of us. And thank you to the audience for sticking around so late. I know it's been a while. I spoke a little bit about my local service here, that I'm recording secretary of the Santa Monica Dem Club, that I was previously on the city's audit subcommittee, that I'm on the Virginia Avenue Park Advisory Board. I'm on a few other boards as well, but listing them would take too long. So I just wanted to touch a little bit on my professional experience. In my day job, I'm a financial analyst. I would bring a perspective to the council that currently is not represented through my lived experiences, through my professional experience, through my consistent history of serving this community. I would be a new kind of leader. The time has come for the next generation of leadership in Santa Monica. And I'm running now because given this moment in our city's history, I believe that I'm the best candidate to meet that urgent need to restore transparency, civility, and ethical behavior to the city council. Only then will we solve the most pressing issues of the day by putting people first. I've always stepped up to help when my community needed it, and I'd never forgive myself if I didn't step up now. Because this community has given so much to me, it would be a shame for me to not give back. And I humbly ask for your support in this election. Thank you.
All right, first, I just want to say thank you to all my colleagues up here. You're an inspiration and you're all doing great things in the community. So thank you for your service. Second, I want to thank the members and the leadership of this club for hosting tonight. This has been a great forum. Thank you for all of your encouragement and support. Santa Monicans can trust me to be a values-driven leader because I have dedicated my life to serving causes greater than myself. I attended West Point because I felt I had a duty to give back to my country, and now I feel the same to the community that has welcomed me with open arms. I served in Iraq, Kuwait, and South Korea, where I made life and death decisions on every mission I led. After my service, I chose to work in the field of diversity, equity, and inclusion because I care about this stuff. I want to attempt to make my corner of the world a better place. I do politics not for myself, but for my community, and Santa Monica is it. I would be honored to earn the support of the Santa Monica Democratic Club in your vote in November. Thank you so much.
So thank you, everybody, for being here. We had so many questions. We could have gone on twice as long. I'm sure the candidates would have loved that. But just to remember that the endorsement vote will be on Zoom on June 26th. Now let's give it up one more time for all the candidates